Next is Aaron Ramsey, a controversial figure. Played the role of super sub this year. In his 28 appearances, he was subbed on 14 times, subbed off in 10. And he killed a total of 4 people this year with his goals and had 6 assists. So, Andy, where are you placing Rambo? Again, filter out all the contract stuff and the
stuff. But I'm going to filter this in. I'm going to give him an 8, and this is why. Even with all that bullshit, he played his heart out for us. And there were moments in matches where he seemed to be the only person on the pitch who gave a shit. And we've always seen that from Ramsey. And specifically this season, I think it speaks leaps and bounds because he didn't have to. We should have been playing him more. I know that he has niggling injuries. I get that, but I think we win more games when he's actually on the pitch, and I think we play better football. So for me, I'm going to give him an 8 because if we had a fully fit Ramsey, specifically the last couple matches of the season, we're in Champions League football, and that speaks leaps and bounds. So I'm going to give him an 8.
Okay, fair enough. Lee, your thoughts?
Yeah, I can't believe it. I'm going to go for an 8 as well, so... I just think from January up until he got injured, he was probably pound for pound Arsenal's best player. And, I just felt that his attitude and everything was spot on. And it's been no coincidence that since he's not been in the team, particularly in the Premier League, how poor we've been. I think that I totally agree with what Andy's saying. And I think that if he'd have been about, we would have got the points to get into the Premier League. I just think that he gives us goals. The goal against Tottenham, that gives you 2 points straight away on the season. And I just felt that there were games when he played really, really well. I think at the end of it, maybe Emery didn't really know where to play him until after Christmas. And it's a shame that we're not going to see him over the next few years. So I think probably... From January to we got injured, he was in the top 2 or 3 players in the season. So for me, an 8, maybe 7.5, but I'm happy to go 8.
I can credit you with a 7.75 if you'd like, if that would make you feel better.
That would make me feel better.
All right, we're going to give him a 7.75. I got the spreadsheet to average everything out anyway, so it doesn't have to be even numbers. His play on the pitch this season, 8.25. I have a lot of other baggage I've never really been able to get over with regards to how the contract thing went, but you can't really think of that. He was the common thread in a lot of our victories. He did his work rate and his effort and his dedication to the team, which you have to believe is genuine and not just PR. The heart on the pitch is not PR, and it was among the best on the team. So 8.25 for him.
As Fredo wrote, Rambo never took a match off like some would have in that situation. Outside of our 2 strikers, he was our biggest contributor. Can't agree with that.
You can't agree with that?
Can't agree with that.
You can't agree with it more, you mean?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Can't disagree with that.
All right. So next, as I try to plug in my computer so the whole podcast doesn't come crashing down. We are so professional, by the way. Most top judges call us a very good podcast with incredible audio. All right. Anyway, Lacazette. Alexandre Lacazette. Andy.
Yeah, I'd probably give him an 8.5. I thought that he deserved being the player of the season. I think that there were matches where we saw his heart and desire, where he tracked back, made tackles. There are a couple opportunities in matches where he had sitters that he missed, but a good striker is going to find themselves in those scenarios. And I think if we go back and look at Henry's seasons with 20-plus goals, you're going to see him miss quite a lot of sitters too. But I think it's absolutely shambolic. People want to sell him next season to get money for other players. I think he's been absolutely superb. So, yeah, I think 8.5.
All right, Lacazette, 8.5. Lee? Your thoughts?
8.5. I think dead right. I think he's been Arsenal's best player. Right?
When are you guys just going to move in together?
That's unreal. This is. There's going to be some debate.
It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if Chris just comes around.
Yesterday in the chat room, we and I were going at each other playfully, but it was like
I'm like
him and Lewis for an hour.
I'm expecting Chris to like come into the picture like with Lee's dinner and vice versa. Since you guys are so close.
I just think that he has been Arsenal's best player. I think that you've got to take into account that he plays up front on his own. His work rate this season, barring probably 2 or 3 games this season, he's not put in the work rate that I felt that he should have done. But his hold-up play has been fantastic. Yeah, I agree with what Andy's saying. He could probably score some more goals. I think all round has been our best player, and I think our best forward as well in the whole package.
You don't have to cry about it, Lee.
So for me, I don't think we've got anybody in the 9 bracket. But for 8.5 was exactly what I was thinking. So I'm happy to go with that.
Well, I disagree, actually. I do think we have someone in the 9 bracket, and Lacazette's it. The goal scoring, 13 goals, 10 assists, and 35 appearances. He was durable. He didn't play a lot of full 90-minute games, but that's kind of always been him. It's a player for whom stats, even impressive stats, don't tell the whole story. I mean, the little things that he brings to the game, his tracking back, the number of interceptions that he made in the middle of the pitch where he's obviously working beyond his positioning to win the ball back. He does a lot of little things, hold up play back against the goal, things that Giroud did, but with much more physicality and sorry, Becca, but much more kind of athleticism than a Giroud, more dynamicism. So I think he's the player of the year. Clearly, he was voted player of the year, was he not?
Yeah,
by Arsenal, and so I'm going to give him a flat 9.
I could just say, I will say also, I forgot to mention it, he did score very important goals against big teams as well.
Mm-hmm. So which is the sign of someone who gets it. He's getting 8s and 9s all over the place. Scream Boys get him a 9. Becca 9. Ryan Cost 9. Justin
Brent Wilborn 9.23.
Yeah. Alonzo Spencer 8.9. We're gonna have somebody like rating somebody pi.
Fredo.
With the full extended digits, but
let's get to the next one.
Yeah, the next one might take a little while. We have a certain Mesut Ozil, and again, I'll keep saying it. We have to judge the play on the pitch. If you want, I suppose we could judge the fact whether he was available or not. But again, we're not going to talk about the war with Emery unless you absolutely think we should. In which case, we will.
I'm going to give him a 3.5. It just for the wages he's on, he needs to be a better player. And I'm thinking of a specific match where we played West Ham, and I remember the passage of play was going to the left. I think there were 20 players on the left. There was our keeper and 1 player on the right, and Ozil found him, which led to a goal. We didn't see any Ozil this season. That
was a Bournemouth goal. That was amazing.
We haven't seen it this year, and Ozil's one of those players where he does something absolutely fantastic, and everyone goes, "Yeah, that's Ozil." We haven't seen that at all, whether it be injury, whether it be a new system. I think that the last 2 months of the season, he grew into the squad, but we never saw enough from him in matches. And I don't care if you're told to defend more. I don't care if you're pushed down on the left wing, if you're a central attacking mid, or even if you're told to play as a striker. If you have his ability, you can make things happen in a match regardless of the position you're in on the field. We're not asking him to go back and defend, but that just wasn't enough. So I'm going to give him a 3.5.
All right, and I will point out to those who maybe haven't been listening or like most people, appropriately haven't been paying attention to the things that we've been saying all season. Andy's been one of his biggest supporters. He has consistently railed against people who have an agenda against him based on a lot of different things. But you can be a supporter of somebody without being a fanboy. You can be a supporter of somebody and recognize the flaws without necessarily blaming them on other things that don't have to do with him. And, in the last month or two, when Ozil really has integrated himself back into the squad, I think we've seen your on pitch ratings of him and feedback of him actually start to go down a bit.
Yeah, because it just hasn't been there, and I appreciate you saying that. It's just he is one of those players where it's easy to get clicks and views because you can just be negative, and then fanboys do jump on. I love Ozil. I love he's an Arsenal player. I disagree with how much he makes, and his play this season's been dire. It's just been atrocious. So, if we keep him next season, let's hope he can morph into the player that we know he's capable of being.
Lee, let me give you some stats. I forgot to mention, 4-way tie for 9th place in assists on the team with 2. Apparently, he had 3,954 secondary assists, though. His 2 assists rank tied or behind prolific creative attacking players such as Socrates, Nacho Monreal, Bellerin, and he only has 2 more assists this season than Steve Bold and Kenny Ken combined. So 24 appearances, subbed off in 10. Subbed on in 4. He started 7 out of 19 away from home, 13 of 19 at home, which is an interesting statistic. How do you rate Ozil's play on the pitch this season?
I honestly think he's just not done enough. He's just not done enough. I think what you want from your star player is someone, when you're struggling a little bit, to take the game by the scruff of the neck and turn it around for you. Mesut Ozil's not done it for me. There are times when he's done some wonderful stuff, and my biggest frustration with him is when you watch him play, he is a wonderfully gifted, talented footballer. There's no two ways about it, but just doesn't do it enough. And certainly for us this season has not been there for me. And when you're getting the star player, and I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10, by the way, but when he's your star player and on all that sort of money and he's getting 5 out of 10, something's wrong. Something is wrong, because he should be up there at 8s and 9s, and he's not. And even with like Lacazette, sometimes I think maybe we go not overboard about Lacazette, but he's not probably having one of his better games, but you can forgive him because he's put the shift in. But I don't think you can even say that with Mesut Ozil, whether he's putting a shift in or not, and I'm not saying that he's not, but it doesn't appear to be.
When do you ever see a poor game from Ozil, but the ability to say, you know what, he worked hard, it just wasn't there today? I mean, the poor games are because he doesn't work hard.
There were moments towards the end of the season where you saw him track back, and I was thinking, he's cut out that passage of play, but it's not with gusto. You don't see it often enough. And I think we've said it in the past, Mike, with Ozil, and as Lee just said, when you're on that money, you should be an 8 or 9 ranked player. Like if you take Hazard, for example, he might have 2 games where he's off, but if you rate like a player of his ability, out of 10 matches, you should be on for 8 of them, and Ozil's in that category. He should not be off for 8 matches and only on for 2. And you look at a player like Hazard who can switch the match. Ultimately, he can grab the ball and go, I'm going to put this in the back of the net or create something where someone else does. That's what Ozil should be doing, and he doesn't do that. And we should not be paying a player on those wages. Mkhitaryan, I think, falls into the same category. If you're on 200,000 plus, that's De Bruyne money. That's Leroy Sané money. That's Mo Salah money. Like, put those names in perspective of what they do on their team, and then Ozil's above all of those players too. It's not good enough.
Yeah, and you mentioned Mkhitaryan. I'm looking at my ranking for Mkhitaryan at a 4.5 and saying Ozil has to be a 3.5 because between the two, who was more impactful on the season? I'd say probably equivalent, and the tiebreaker there is you'd have to expect Ozil to be more.
There was a stick. Like, I know it doesn't get the headlines for it, but it was in the game against Valencia. There was a 20-minute spell before half time when Ozil he took the sting out of the game by slowing it down, passing all that, and that was fantastic. People don't get to see that, but there was a part of the game there where he took the sting out of the ball by keeping the ball, passing it, and you think to yourself, right, then go on, and then he disappears. Yeah, and that's my frustration with him, because that 20 minutes he took the sting out of the game, took it our way, won't get the headlines because it's not a fantastic assist or it's a goal or whatever, but there was that when he just kept the ball, kept us all calm, and it was. But then someone will turn around and say to you, "Well, you expect that and more," and you can't argue with that.
Yeah. So the love affair with Ozil appears to be over, but there's a new love affair around, and it's between Andy and Grant.
Well,
in our chat. I'm basically watching you guys pork each other virtually.
And then I got Mike Hernandez yelling at me in all cap locks because I should be taking wages out of the equation. I think, Michael, if you stop playing FIFA for a minute and you return to my earlier statement, I gave him a 3.5 based off of performance.
Yes, but Grant points out something very interesting, which is Andy's eyes. I mean, he asked me to do the podcast 3 years ago, and I'm like, "Who are you? And why?" And no. And then he sent me this picture of his eyes, his big blue motherfucking eyes, and I've been in a trance ever since then. There they are, the eyes. So anyway, thank you for noticing, Grant. And Claude's in the house. Good to see you, Claude. I miss you. It's been a while. Claude said he couldn't miss a podcast with Mr. Old Half Pint.
Thank you very much, Claude.
I'm not used to having to do camera work on this. But anyway, next on our list, number 11, Lucas Torreira. Or Torreira. Lucas what?
Lucas. Tierra. Someone said to me, say Vieira and put a T in front of it and you're there. So that's what I'm saying. Tierra.
That's not exactly okay. We'll give it to you. 34 appearances, 1 huge goal in the North London derby. Pretty big impact on the team, I'd say. But Andy, you called him prior to the season the man you backed to be not just our best signing, but the Premier League's best signing. How do you feel about him at the end?
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with it because his impact on our team has been huge, especially during that run of 22. I think he really held it down. I think the physicality of the league slowed him down, and
I think Grant would like to hold you down.
And Warren tore on him. So I don't know, Mike. For a numbers rating, I'm going to give him a 7.5. We saw glimpses of what we need from him. I think he just needs some backup in that position. I think we rotated the central midfielders around him quite often as well. But I still think, I can't think of a better signing this season from other teams. Because when you compare him to, who did Liverpool sign as their defensive midfielder, Keita?
Yeah, Naby Keita. They brought him in this summer after.
Yeah. Like, I can't say that he was
Fabinho.
better. Fabinho, like those two players didn't do better, and I think his impact for our team, I thought he was wonderful. And then obviously the goal at against Tottenham was, just superb. So I'm going to give him a 7.5.
Lee, what do you think about Torreira?
I have to say the word faded comes into to my mind. You know what I mean? I thought we started off really, really well. And I'm not criticising him by that because I think that, the Premier League is tough, and I think that towards the end of it he faded. And if I'll be honest, I thought he would come back after that suspension and be a little bit better than what he has done. But I think, like we said about Socrates, I think it's been a great first season for him. As Andy said there, he's had to change midfielders a lot and everything there. I'd just like to see him I think, when he first comes to side, just playing in front of the back four, shielding it and doing all that. The last few games, I've seen him popping up in our box and things like that. I know that he's done very well to score against Spurs, and he created a goal against, I can't remember, we got a nil, it was 0-0, and we got a goal late on. Can't remember who was that against now, and he was involved in that. But I'd like to see him just doing that job, what he was doing when we was on that 20-game unbeaten run. But if you remember that, he was in and out of the team on a few of them as well. But I think that for a first season, a real decent season for him. So 7 out of 10 for me.
I wish I could help you remember what game that was, but I didn't watch any of our games this season. So,
well, keep in mind, if we add another,
I think Aubameyang scored it. I think, and he was involved in, or he did score it.
You actually just pronounced that right. That's the first time I've heard that. But sorry,
I like Aubameyang at the moment.
Was just to Lee's point, like he did fade. Let's imagine if we actually had someone who could back him up in that role. You didn't really want to put Guendouzi in there in some of the matches because he's young. Jacques is not a defensive midfielder. So, as we said, he started off great, too many matches, very physical league. That's one area that we need to improve on, whether it be we actually sign a right or left back to back up who's in those positions and let Mainsley go in there? I don't know, but we need to. That's another area that we should try and shore up in the summer. Or we have Chambers coming back, and he would be a good suitable replacement or substitution there too.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting call there. Chambers, Elneny, and all those guys. I mean,
Yeah.
Elneny's not going to make this one because of his inability to make it to 10 games. But Lee, what was your number for Torreira?
7 out of 10 for me, Mike.
7 out of 10. To me, I agree with you about the fade. It's definitely easier to look at his first half of the season and say that he was much more impactful than in the second half. I still think the fact that he brought something that we've missed for a long time, and he like Socrates, I would say, makes the player next to him better just by him being on the pitch. We saw that with Granit Xhaka, the difference in Xhaka with him on the pitch and without. So I'm going to give him an 8.2. Not
Generous.
Quite Ramsey level, not quite Lacazette level, but I just think that he's got to be among the first names on the team sheet every single week if you want to have any chance of winning, and you can't say that about too many people on the team.